Is Robert Knapp. I'm here to discuss models versus reality as it relates to geographic information systems. I'm going to touch on the concepts of abstraction or representation as we deal with them in GIS. So if you were an accountant or if you worked at a grocery store and you were asked to count inventory, you would be counting physical items such as candy bars. How many Snickers bars do we have left in our inventory? These are physical items that you can touch or pick up. In a GIS, we cannot put these real items into our data models or our databases. Therefore, we are limited to using abstractions or representations. In cartography, the art, which is the art and science of map making, representation is defined as a likeness or a depiction that substitutes for the real entity, item, or in some cases phenomena. In GIS, we often use crude representations like points to show the location of, say, a city. We could also use a polygon, a square or irregular polygon, roughly the shape of the city, and this would be a better representation for some use. How good does a representation need to be? Well, that depends on what we want to use that representation for. What kind of map, what kind of analysis do we want to use it for? If we made a really good three-dimensional representation, would that become virtual reality? I don't know. So looking at this slide, on the left we have a fire hydrant. In this case it's an image of a fire hydrant, but just for the sake of this discussion, pretend that you're standing there by that fire hydrant and your feet are getting wet. You could touch that hydrant, you could see it, you could turn it off and stop getting wet. This is a real item. On the right we have a cartoon of a fire hydrant. If you are familiar with fire hydrants, you would recognize this without any labeling, but it's still a relatively crude representation, or depending, but it's a lot better than a single dot. Anyway, this cartoon is what we would call a graphic representation of a fire hydrant. In the next slide, we see a person on the left, in the left image, collecting location information about a fire hydrant, a real object in a real location. He could also collect attribute data about the hydrant, whether it was working, its color, how far it is from the street. Many things like that could be collected into your GIS as well. The resulting data could be used to generate a map. In that map we would have representations that show the location of fire hydrants. Our image on the right here uses a red symbol to indicate where all of the fire hydrants are in this particular area, in this particular geographic area. If you note, this map does not have a legend, so you'll have to take my word for it. And in this case, at this scale, a red dot or a point would be maybe a more suitable location or more suitable representation for this. Another name for individual representations or individual fire hydrants in this abstract sense in the GIS is features. Each feature represents a single fire hydrant or the location of a single fire hydrant in our map or in our analysis. Feature is defined as a representation of a real object or phenomena on a map. In this case, the phenomena would have to be sort of finite for it to be a feature, but a real object in our GIS is represented as a feature. We could have roads that are individual roads that are features, individual buildings that could be features, individual natural features like a lake. As a GIS practitioner, it's always good to keep in mind that your maps and the symbols that you use are only abstractions. They are not reality. Maps and analysis can be very powerful. Make sure that you do not overstate your accuracy or the certainty at which you depict features or your results of any of your analysis that you do in GIS. Okay, that's all I have. Hope you enjoyed this. Go out and do GIS.